Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome to this Python Selenium course for beginners. And in this course, as you will see right here, I have compiled 13 videos plus one bonus video from my channel. As you see, actually it's 12 videos plus one bonus video. And in this crash course, we will see how we can set up Selenium, how we can scrape certain items from an Amazon list, how we can use pagination, how we can bypass certain securities like CAPTCHA, normal CAPTCHA, hCaptcha, and all of those, how we can bypass detection using certain settings, and many more. So yeah, we will also see how we can host our scripts in various services like AWS, Heroku, Vercel, and all of those services. Now this is a actually almost 3 hours long video. Now let me give you some motivation. So as you see right here, usually as a web scraping developer in the United States, usually you make around $100,000 per year. I would also like to mention that in my tutorial, I teach everything that you'll need to know to take over professional projects. You'll be able to use those skills and start making money. Now, I don't teach you every single thing that you need to know about Selenium, but by knowing this, the most important stuff, basically the basics, you'll be able to, using a quick Google search, find anything that you need to learn. For example, let's say I didn't mention pagination, so you Selenium pagination, go on Stack Overflow and easily understand how you can implement that, having those basic knowledges that I teach you. So yeah, with that said, hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, let's start.
Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to a brand new tutorial series in Selenium in Python. In this tutorial series, we will go through on how you can set up Selenium in Python, how you can fetch elements, how you can automate certain tasks, how you can bypass detection, how you can bypass CAPTCHA, and all that kind of stuff. So if you are interested, hit that like button, subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future episodes. Also, I have done a similar series in Puppeteer in Node.js, so if you are interested, after the video ends, you can click up here. So with that said, let's get into this video. So first of all, we want to install Python if you haven't already. So first of all, click the link down in the description to be redirected to this Selenium documentation page, and we want to scroll down and see which versions are supported. And as you can see, Selenium supports Python 3.7 and newer versions of that. So all we have to do now is go to python.org, click downloads, and install a version that is 3.7 or more. We can also install the Python 3.10 version, which is currently the latest version. Always make sure the Python version you try to download is supported on Selenium. So 3.10 is supported, so I'll go ahead and download it. And then once you install Python, make sure you install an IDE as well if you haven't already. I'm using Visual Studio Code. So now go ahead and create a folder. I already created mine, Selenium tutorial. And now click up here if you are on Windows and type cmd, and that basically opens a terminal in your folder. Now if you are using any other operating systems like Mac, just do the same thing, just open a terminal in this file location. Now what we will do is pip install Selenium. Now you can also see that command from the documentation page. If you scroll down and go to installing, you'll see this command right here. And that's what we basically are running. Now it has a -u, and that means to either upgrade Python or basically install it, but you don't have to, not upgrade Python, upgrade Selenium to the latest version, which we don't have to do if we are installing it for the first time. So I will click enter, and then it starts installing Selenium. Now I already had most of the packages already installed because I used Selenium in the past, but you will see something similar. Now once the installation is completed, you shall see an empty command line right here. Now I'll do CLS to clear the terminal, and I'll type code dot, which basically opens Visual Studio Code on that location. Then we will create a new file and let's call it main.py, which is a Python file. And here is where we will write our Selenium code. Now let's go back on the documentation, scroll down, and here you can see an example. Copy the code from the documentation page and then click up here if you are using Visual Studio Code, or go back to the command line and type python main.py, and that will basically run our application, our code. So let's click enter. So as you see, we have an error and it says GeckoDriver executable needs to be in path. So you basically need to install GeckoDriver, which is basically Firefox driver. Or for Chrome, we are using CHROMEDRIVER. So it's the same thing, but for Firefox. So let's go ahead and install that. So click the link down in the description, which will redirect you to the installation page. And this is basically the installation page. Now install your operating system. So for me, it's Windows. So I'll go to Windows 64. But if you are using Mac OS or anything else, install that operating system file. There we go. We don't have to specify GeckoDriver here. All we have to do is put it on the same folder as our code. So we did that, so we don't have to specify anything here. Now let's delete this log file because we don't need that. And then let's rerun our code. So I'll go on terminal, type CLS to clear the terminal, and then rerun the code. And shortly it will open a window in Firefox and it will visit selenium.dev, because what we basically said here is create a browser with Firefox, and then on that browser get that page. So basically visit that page. So it visits selenium.dev. So now let me show you how you can do that with Chrome. And to use that with Chrome, we have to download something similar to GeckoDriver called CHROMEDRIVER. So again, click the link down in the description, which will redirect you to that page. Now we don't want to install the latest version, because it doesn't work with the latest version. We want to install a version like 96 or something like that. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's install the latest version for 96. And again, choose your operating system. I'll use Windows 32. Even if you have Windows 64, it doesn't matter, just use that. And then I'll go to the folder, and to visit your folder from Visual Studio Code, right click here and reveal in File Explorer. And now all we have to do is drag and drop our CHROMEDRIVER. And let's go back, and here instead of Firefox we will use Chrome. Let's try that. Okay, so we got an error and it says this version of CHROMEDRIVER only supports Chrome version 96, which is what we installed. But now it says current browser version is 98, so we basically have to install 98 instead of 96. So copy this version, then go back to the installation page and type Ctrl F and go to that installation. And then we will install again Windows 32. Now let's go back, delete our old CHROMEDRIVER, open WinRAR, and then go back to our folder and drag and drop CHROMEDRIVER. So let's rerun our application, and there we go. It opens selenium.dev website in Chrome instead of Firefox. So that's how you basically do that with Chrome. Now in our tutorial you can use whatever you want, either Chrome or Firefox. I'll be using Chrome, but we might switch while we're doing that. So yeah, that's how you can set up Selenium in Python and run a very simple application. In the next video, I'll show you how you can fetch elements from a website. So yeah, if you are interested in that, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of those episodes. Also, let me know down in the comments what you would like to see next, and also what else would you like to see in this tutorial series. So with that said, see you in the next episode. Bye bye. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to episode 2 of this Selenium tutorial series. In this episode, I'll show you how you can go to this Amazon.com page and grab each product information of that page. So here we have about 20 products or so, and what we will do is get each product, and then for each product get the image URL, the title, the price, and maybe the URL for that product. So yeah, let's go ahead and see how we can do that. First of all, I'll copy this URL, go back to my code and paste it here. So instead of the selenium.dev website we tried to visit before, we'll now visit Amazon. Next, let's go back to the website, right click and click inspect. And basically here we can see the HTML code for this website. Now we want to click up here. And basically what that does is when we hover over an element, it shows us the code for that element. And now we want to find the selector for each product, which is basically how we can find elements from our code. We can use, for example, a class name that all the products has, and then using that class name, we can tell the code to find all the elements matching that class name. Now what we want to do is get, first of all, the element surrounding all those products, and all we have to do is scroll up, and as you see, the element that contains those divs are again a div, and it has some class names. Now what we can do is right click on that element, go to copy, and then we can either copy full XPath or selector or anything like that. So let's copy the selector. Let's go back in our code, and now what we can do is say elem-list equal to browser. So first of all, we want to find that element, and we will paste our CSS selector. And actually we don't have to paste all that, just the main ones. There we go. Now let's then print elem-list. Actually let's print elem-list and see if we get anything. So let's run the code, and we get an error. And it says find elements by are depreciated. Actually it's depreciated, but that doesn't mean we cannot use it. But let's update our method. So to use it normally, we can do find on element, and then we can use by, and then specify how we want to find that element, and we can say by the CSS selector, and then we can specify the CSS selector. Now let's rerun our program or application, and there we go. It console.log our element. Now we cannot see much from that. Now what we want to do is get the items, and that will be equal to elem-list find elements by CSS selector, and then we will specify the selector for that product. So if we go back, so let's close these browsers, let's go back and see which selector is the same for each product. Now as you see, the data component type is always the same. It's always s-search-result for each product. So let's copy that selector. So let's say XPath, and what we will do is dash and then the selector we used, but that will be in an array, and also use single strings, so that way we can use double strings inside of that single string. And then let's print the length of those items so we can make sure it worked. Okay, so it says unable to locate an element with the XPath. So let's see how we can fix that. And there we go. All I had to do to fix the issue is add the div in front of it, and also the at on data component type. And there we go. As you see, the length of the products are 24. And if we go back to the Amazon page, if we count them up, are 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 multiplied by 4 is 24. There we go. So now we get all products, and now what we can do is use a for loop, and then we can say for item in items, print the text for that item. No, I'm not sure if that will work, so let's test it out. So let's delete that and let's rerun an application, and there we go. So what it does is it goes through each element, so through each item, and then it prints out the text. Now we don't want to print the text, but what we can do again is use each item selector and then get the text. So to do that, let's find which selector is used for the title. So let's hover over a product title, and then as you see, we can use the h2 tag to find the title. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can say title equals to item dot find underscore element, and then we can say by, and then the tag name, and then we can use the h2. Now what we can do is print the title, and let's say title like that. So let's run our application, And there we go. We got each title for each product. So title Panduit, and there we go. Now let's get all the other elements we wanted. So let's get the price. And now we follow the same process. We hover over the element that contains the price. And as you see, to do that, all we have to do is get the class a-price and then get the child element with a class a-offscreen. Or we can just get the first span element. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can say, actually let's leave it as it is. And then let's say price equals to item dot underscore element. We can use the class name. Then let's go back. As you can see, it says a-price. So let's do that. And then we can use the arrow and then pointing to span. So what that says is get all the span elements. So what that does is it says find that class name. And actually, do we have to put a dot in front of it? I'm not sure. I think that can work. There we go. And then we say, actually, we have to do CSS selector, not class name. And then what we are doing here is we say find that class name and then find that span inside that class name. And what it does is it finds the first span, and the first span is the one that it contains the price. There we go. So now let's again print the price using the same way, and let's run our application again. And we got an error. Okay, so what's the error about? Okay, most likely some elements don't have a price. That's one reason that could happen. As you see, it says unable to locate element, but the products that it got the price, it still didn't got anything. So we are doing something wrong. Let me remove the span and let's test it again. But first of all, we will put a try catch because not all divs contain a price. So what we can do is leave it as like that, put that below the try catch, and then leave the price empty. So let's say no price found. And what we can do is try to find the price. If we don't find anything, we do nothing. And that's basically it. So by default, the price says no price found. Then we try to find the price by the class name of that element and we get the text. But if we get an error, then we just do nothing. So the application doesn't crash. Now let's test it again. Now we could do the same for the title, but basically all products have a title, so we don't have that issue. And as you see, we got the price. So the price is equal to $6, $16, etc, etc. Now we also got something else from that, and we get the 99, and that's probably the cents. Okay, so actually what I end up doing is using XPath. Actually, all we have to do is once we get the text, remove the spacing. Okay, so what we can do is replace the text and then replace all the new lines. That's what that represents, that symbol. Then the new lines, replace them with a dot because the new line represents the cents. So that's why we put a dot. Now let's run our application. And as you will see, there we go. We get the price, which is 21.79. So that's interesting. Why do we get the same price for everything? Okay, let's not use the XPath and instead use the CSS selector again. So let's do that and let's try it again. And there we go. Now we get the normal prices. So 21.79 for raising electronics. And now we go, if we go back, 21.79, then 8.99. And yeah, that's true. So yeah, there we go. Now we can get the price. Now all it's left is the image and then the link to that product. So let's inspect again, hover over the image, and there we go. To find it, we have to use the class that says s-image. So let's use that. And again, I'll do the same thing with the price. Use a try catch. So we'll say try. Actually, first let me use that. So let's say image equal to no image found. And then I'll create a new try catch, try to find the image. And then we say dot get attribute source. So we want to get the attribute called source from that selector, from that element. And then let's bring that to the console. So now let's rerun our application. And there we go. So let's see if that's correct, if we get the correct image. So for Rising Electronics, if you see, we have this one right here. Now if I click at the image, there we go, it gets the correct image. And let's get the second product image, which is the new X7, and the image is that. And if we check, there we go. So we do get the correct image URL. Now let's go ahead and get the product URL as well. So let's rerun our application. Let's inspect element, and then let's hover over the product. And let's try to locate where that URL is. So let's scroll up. And first of all, we want to go to that product div. There we go. And let's try to locate the URL. It's probably on the image. So let's hover over the image. And yes, there we go. So if you see right here, the class with a-link-normal has the href to that product. So again, the same thing with the image, but now we don't have to put a try catch because all the products have a link to their product. So let's say link equal to, and then we will say item.find_element. And actually we don't want to find the a, just the class. Let's find it by the class because there could be multiple a tag elements. So let's use the CSS selector. Let's give it the class name. Actually, we can use the class name. So let's use that instead. And then let's print our link with our link. And then let's rerun our application. Actually, let's add one more thing. But as you see, we do get the correct product URL. There we go. Now let's add one more thing because as you see right here, we get each product, but it's really confusing. So what I want to do is for each product, separate that with a new line. So we basically add a new line and then let's rerun our application. And there we go. Now it's more clear which title, price, image, and link is for each product. Now in the next video, I'll show you how you can go through pagination and get all the products from a category from all pages. And then maybe on the next video, we'll go through how you can download those images from those links and anything else that you can do. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see next. And also hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future episodes. So with that said, see you in the next episode. Bye bye. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome in episode 3 of this Selenium tutorial series. In this episode, we will go through pagination. So yeah, with that said, let's get into today's video. So in the previous video, I showed you how you can get each product from this Amazon page, and then for each product, get the product details like the title, the image URL, the price, and also the link to that product. So now in today's video, we have something on the bottom of the Amazon page called pagination. And whenever we go to an Amazon page and we search our category, it almost always have multiple products, not just the 24 products it has on one page, but it has multiple pages. And what we want to do now is go through each page dynamically. So no matter how many pages it got, we will get to each page until we reach the final page and then get each page products information. So let's see how we can do that. So now what we will tell the script to do is basically click next, get the products, and we will basically run a while true, and we will click next until next, as you see here, is disabled. So if we go to inspect, so we click inspect, we'll scroll down and then we will hover over next, and let me put that inside. And as you see here, whenever the next is disabled, it has a CSS selector called area-disabled to true. And that's what is telling us that it is disabled. So yeah, let's see now how we can say the script to click next every time it gets to 24 products until the next is disabled. So let's see how we can do that. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and here is where we get the items. Now I want to say next underscore, actually is next disabled, and here we want to keep track if the next is disabled. By default it will be to not disabled, and then we will run a while true, and while is next disabled, while it's not disabled, we will do this right here. So while the next button is not disabled, actually currently we are not checking for the next button, we are just checking for the value. So while this value is to false, then we will get the products. But as you see here, we say browser.get. Now that's what will happen in the first, but next, every time we do get the products, we want to click the button next. So what we will do is browser dot find underscore element. We will use the XPath and then we will click. Now let me change the selector. So let's go back. Okay, so we will use the class name called s-pagination-next, and that's basically the class name for the next button. So let's copy it. Let's go back, and actually we will not use the XPath as it's not in it. We will say class name. We will use the class name, and here we will define the class name. And here we will use the class name, and we will give it the class name. So what it basically does is we tell it to find the element by the class name, use the class name, then whenever you find the element, click it. Now I want to put that to try catch, because if we only have one page, it might not have that next button. So yeah, so is next disabled, let's put it to true. And one more thing we want to test is if, actually, let's do that first. So let's see if it does click it. So let's run our application. So it gets all products, it clicks next. Let's see, does it give an error whenever the button is not disabled? But what we wanted to do is basically click the next, which it did work, as you saw. So now let's go to phase number 2, which is to check if the button is disabled. And if it is, we want to update the value, the is next disabled value, to true. Now what I want to see is, first of all, does it give an error whenever the button is disabled? If it does, then we can just use this one right here and we don't have to do anything else. So let me close the app. Let's close the browser as well. Clear the terminal. And what I want to do is print error here. And let's run the application. So it gets all products as you saw, and we got an error. So it says cannot find CSS selector as pagination does next. But that could be for many reasons. But one reason that could be is because it goes too fast. We are not waiting for the page to load. So let's test it with another page with multiple pages. So let me find one. And there we go. Let's use this one, which has almost 400 pages. So let's copy the URL, paste it here, and rerun our application. Now, what we want to expect is for it to not give an error, but as you saw, it did give an error. And as I said, this is because we are not waiting for the page to load whenever we click next. So let's see how we can do that. Okay, so one trick we can use is we can wait for a certain element to be found. So what we can do is use the WebDriver, which is WebDriver await. And whenever we rerun our while true, right here, we will try to find the element. Actually, we will wait for the element to be found. So let me copy an example here, and yeah, that's basically it. So what it does right here is it uses our browser. It waits for 10 seconds until a certain selector is found. Now we will use the selector we try to find our list. So we'll use this one right here, and that's basically it. So what we do right here is we try to find the element, we wait for 10 seconds unless it will crash if it doesn't find it in the next 10 seconds, and we tell it to find it by the CSS selector. And yeah, that's basically it. So what we will do now is, sure, we don't have to do anything else, that's it. I guess we could put a try catch in case it doesn't find it in the next 10 seconds. But yeah, let's try it. So let's put a try catch in case it doesn't load in the next 10 seconds. Actually, it's not a try catch, it's try except. Sorry, I'm confusing it with JavaScript. So yeah, in case of an error, we will say the same thing as we say here. We will basically make the next disabled. So let's say main error here, and let's say pagination error. There we go. Now let's try it again. Okay, we see the first page. This is normal, and it crashed again. So let's see. No such an element, unable to locate element. Okay, it couldn't find the click, which is weird. Actually, let's do something else. We get the error just for the button. So what I want to do is actually wait for the button instead of waiting for the page to load. Or we can wait for both. So let's do that. So let's say button. So let's name it next underscore button. And yeah, let's select it. And let's replace how it finds that button. There we go. Let's rerun our application. So now we are both waiting for the products to load and the button to be found. And there we go, we don't get any more errors. And as you see right here, it goes through each page, which is great, it works. Now this is 400 pages, so that's not really a great way to test it. So let's go back to the old URL we were using. So let's go up here and I'll replace the URL with the old URL that only has 2 pages. And let's rerun our application. So it goes through the one page, goes to the next page, and right now we are not saying, okay, yes, we have an error. It tries to go next again, and it gets basically the same products non-stop. So let's close it. And yeah, the except doesn't really work. So let's remove that. In case of an error, we are already doing the same thing right here, so we don't have to keep that. And what I want to do instead is, so we are getting the attribute from the next button, and we will check if that next button has a class name of, and we will check if it has the class name of disabled. But it's not exactly that. If we go on the Amazon page and we inspect element, whenever we go, whenever we have the next disabled, as you see, it has a class and it's called s-pagination-disabled. So let's get that. Let's say next class names. Actually, it's that. And let's say if, and then the substring in next class, and then put the is next disabled to true, and then break, as we don't want to do this one right here. If the class is not there, it will basically don't go through the if statement and then try to click the next button. So yeah, let's test this out. So let's rerun it, and it will normally go to the next page, but we got an error. So let's see what that is. Element is not attached to the page document. Okay, so I found one big issue we have right now. So what we actually did is, for each item, we got to the next page. So I will do shift and tab and push that outside. So after we get all the products, then we want to click next. So that's probably one of the huge errors we had. So let's try it again. Okay, now we get the old error we had, and now let's put back what we added. So what we will do is basically, first of all, get the class name. So let's say next class. Actually, let's do that. And we will do that. So we will get the class names, and then we will say if, and we will say if it is disabled. So let's see. Actually, we can just do if the word disabled is in the class names, then set the is next disabled to true, and basically break. There we go. Otherwise, it will run this one right here. Or actually, let's do that. So else, click the button. There we go, even better. So let's run it. There we go, it goes through all products. So we get the first products, but we never get the other products, which is weird. So we don't get the second page products. Okay, so what I will do instead is, instead of waiting this to load, I want the products to load. So let's do that, and that will probably fix the issue. So we get the 24 products, and then we get the 6 products. There we go. So now let's uncomment the product information, and let's test it one more time. And I also want to test it with the 400 pages one. So we run it, we get the first products, there we go, and then we get the next page products. Perfect. Now let's get the previous URL, there we go. Let's copy that with the 400 products, and let's paste it, there we go. Now let's rerun our application. Let's close first of all the browser. Let's rerun our application, and we should keep getting the new page product. There we go, no issue there. Okay, so now let's see how we can save those data for each product. So let's go back, and what we basically want to do is, when we first run our application, we will create a JSON file. So let's do that manually so I can show you. So we'll create a JSON file called data.json with an empty array. And then every time we get the products, we will push an object to this array, and the object will contain the title, the price, the image, and the link. So yeah, let's see how we can do that. First of all, let's see how we can create an empty JSON file. So first of all, we will use the JSON library, and let's go right here, and let's say with open, and it will try to open JSON file. So let's say actually it has to be a string, then data.json, and then we have to specify what we want to do, and with W we want to write. Otherwise, with R, we want to read the file, but we want to write to that file, and then let's say as F. And what we will do now is JSON.dump, and then the array and the F. So we are basically using the file, and we are saying, okay, take that JSON, which is an empty array, make that a string, and then save that file. Now, what that will do if we don't have a data.json already, it will create the data.json file for us. So let's delete the one we created manually, and then let's rerun our application. And as you will see, let's stop the application. We have the data.json file created automatically. Now you can comment that out if you don't want it to do that every time you run application. Maybe you want to run multiple instances or something like that, so you can comment that out. And now let's see how we can push an object every time we get a product. So let's create a function first of all. So I'll define a function right here, and I found that from jigs.org. So I'll have the link down in the description if you want to see the example yourself. So what this example does is it reads the file name, which by default is the data.json. We also can give it the new data, which I'll show you how you can do that in a bit. So it basically reads the file, it loads the file content to the file underscore data variable, and then we have to remove that. And then we append the new data to that array. Then we are setting the file current position at offset, and then we are converting back to JSON. So we say JSON.dump, we put the file data, the new file data, use the file right here. And this one specifies the format of our JSON file. So it shows the data more like prettier. You can remove that if you want, but I'll leave it there. And let's go back to the for loop of our item in items. And under the print, let's put write JSON, where we'll put an object, and then let's specify the data. So let's say title to title, price to price, image to image, and then the link to the link. And let's run our application. So it will create the new data.json file, and it will start adding the products. As you see, there we go. So yeah, that's how you can add the products to the data.json file locally. And let me stop the app now. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see next. And also hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future episodes and videos on this channel. And also I'd really appreciate if you share this video to your friends so they can also learn Selenium. So yeah, with that said, see you in the next video. Bye bye. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to the 4th episode of this Selenium tutorial series. In this episode, we will see how we can solve reCAPTCHA using hCaptcha API. So with that said, let's get into today's video. So as you see here, hCaptcha is a service that offers solving CAPTCHAs for you. Basically, you give it the website you want to solve the CAPTCHA, the URL, and then you give it some extra information, and then in return, it will give you a code which you can input to that website you want to solve the CAPTCHA, and then once you click submit, it will seem like the CAPTCHA is solved, which is basically solved. So first of all, it says go to the website you want to solve the reCAPTCHA, which in today's video we will use this reCAPTCHA demo from Google, and we will open developers console and let's see what it does. So it says open developers console in your browser and find element with data side key attribute. So let's go ahead and find that. So we'll click up here and then we will hover over this reCAPTCHA. We want to find the reCAPTCHA. There we go. It's up here. So reCAPTCHA and then the data side key. And then we will use that so it can identify the data side key. And as you see right here, we have the Python demo. Let me close that. And it requires the side key and also the URL. And then in return, it will give us this code right here. Now we want to get this code. And once we get that code, we want to automatically go to the text area, which we have to find right here. And we have to insert this one right here to text area, but not this one, but the dynamic code it will give us afterwards. it will not be this exact one. And we will insert it inside the text area. And then once we do that, we will click submit and it should solve the CAPTCHA correctly. So yeah, let's go on the code and see how we can do that. First of all, I want to create a new Python file called captcha.py. You can call it whatever you want, doesn't really matter. And let's go back to the old. And now let's copy the basics here. So let's copy those. So those. Then also let's copy the browser, the creation of the browser. And I guess that's basically right. Okay, so let's go back. And now let's replace the URL with the URL we want to solve the CAPTCHA from. So let's copy this one right here. Let's replace the URL. And I guess let's test it first of all. And there we go. It opens a window with the URL we wanted. Now let's continue. So let's go back. And we want to create a function, or let's create another file, separate file that uses this Python right here. So let's do that. So let's say solve reCAPTCHA .py. And now let's create a function def solve reCAPTCHA, and we want to do that, but we want to import outside. There we go. First of all, we want to install two CAPTCHA, and you don't install two CAPTCHA like this one right here, but instead pip install two CAPTCHA -python. This is actually the name, but that's how you import it. So yeah, it's kind of complicated. Just do that and you'll be fine. Now, as you will see, this also requires an API key, and that's because the service is a paid service, but it's really cheap. So let me show you. As you'll see right here, it costs about 50 cents for 1000 solved CAPTCHAs. Now that's not reCAPTCHAs. For reCAPTCHAs is a little bit more. Actually, it's a lot more, but it's still really cheap. So for reCAPTCHAs, it's $3 per 1000 solved reCAPTCHAs. And that's a lot. That's a lot of reCAPTCHAs. But it depends on your use case. So yeah, let's continue. So first of all, you want to sign up, and I'll really appreciate if you hit the link down in the description, which is an affiliate link. So I'll earn a small commission every time you deposit some money in this service. So let's sign up. Actually, I'll sign in by you sign up. Create an API key, which it will be automatically created for you. Deposit minimum $3, as that's what they require you to deposit. And then copy the API key and let's continue. But let me show you where you can find that API key. So first of all, log in. After you log in, you will scroll down, and right here you should find your API key. Just click copy and it should be copied automatically for you. Okay, so let's go back on the code, and again, make sure you replace this your API key with your API key. And now let's figure what we will do with this one right here. So what we can do is actually get some parameters. So the site key and URL can be dynamic, and let's replace this with the site key variable, and same for the URL. There we go. Now what we can do is import that functionality. So from import solve reCAPTCHA, there we go. And after we visit the website, we can solve the reCAPTCHA. So let's do that. And actually in our use case, the data site key is always the same for each website. Give it as a parameter. Again, it's always the same for each website. Now, if you visit any other website, you'll have to find that data site key, but we don't have to make any functionalities to fetch that data site key, as it's always the same. Next, it requires to put the URL, and again, that's also the same every time. So let's copy it and paste it right here. And actually, right here, what I wanted to do is return it. So let's do return and then result. Let's remove that and just print E. There we go. And I guess let's test it. So what I will do is replace my API key, and there we go. So let's say result equal to that, and then let's print the result. And let's see if it worked. And there we go, we got the result. Again, it took a lot of time to solve it, so it took me about 3 minutes, have that in mind. But I'll create a video. Okay, so now let's say code equals results. So the result, and then let's get the code. We don't want the CAPTCHA ID, just the code. And yeah, let's continue. So now we want to get that code and put it inside this text area. So let's see how we can do that. Okay, so I finally found how we can update the text area. So it's actually not as complicated, but it's kind of hacky. So let me show you how we can do it. So first of all, we said browser.execute a script, and we tell it to execute a JavaScript script. And yeah, that's how you do it. And the JavaScript script, what it does is it says document, which is the whole website, get element by ID, and we give it the element ID, and then we update the inner HTML, and then we give it the updated value. So yeah, that's how we're going to do that. So first of all, I also say time to sleep like for 5 or 3 seconds, because the text area is not like immediately visible, so that's why I do that. But we can also say like WebDriver await for 10 seconds until that element is visible, and we can give it the ID. There we go. So yeah, let's do that instead. And right here, instead of doing that, what we will do is give it the code. Right here, we will say code. There we go. And right here, let's uncomment that. And yeah, let's test it out. And also we'll click submit. There we go. Let me remove that. And let's run our script. So now it will start getting the code from the hCaptCha API, which take like few seconds to a minute or something like that. And as you will see in a bit, it will print the code in the terminal, and then it will click submit. And there we go. It actually did it, but it did it too fast and we couldn't see if it actually did it. So what I will do is once we click submit, I'll sleep for us, let's say 2 minutes. There we go. And let's rerun our code. So with the time sleep, what we did is, okay, wait for 2 minutes before you close the browser. That's basically it. And there we go. So as you see, it said verification success. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. The code will be down in the description, so you can clone it and use it however you like. Subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see next. And also share this video with your friends or anyone you think this video would be helpful to. So yeah, see you in the next video. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to the 5th episode of the Selenium tutorial series. In this episode, we will see how you can solve normal captchas using the hCaptCha API. So yeah, with that said, see you in the video. Before the video starts, I want to thank everyone that supported me during the period of reaching 1000 subscribers. We finally did it and I'm really grateful about that. I'll do as much as possible to improve my quality of my videos and also the quantity I upload, so I'll try to upload as much as possible. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you would like to see next, and again, thank you a lot for your support. So yeah, with that said, seeing you in the video. So to solve the normal captchas, we will use an API called hCaptCha, and they basically take care of solving that captcha and giving you the final result. So what we will do is grab the captcha, the normal captcha image, because it's usually an image, it's always an image actually. So we will download it locally, we'll save it to a folder where we will have our multiple captchas there, and then we will send that image to the API, and it will basically return a text. So it will return the text that that image contains. Now that normal captcha, let me show you a demo. It looks like this one right here. Now this hCaptCha API is not free, but it's really cheap. So if you see the rate right here, it says it's 50 cents for 1000 normal captchas. So yeah, if you are interested in that, you can sign up using the link down below, which is an affiliate link. And yeah, let's continue. So we will use the demo that hCaptCha gives us. So first of all, sign up and we will use an API key it gives us. So let's scroll down and it has a tutorial on how to do that with Python. So as you see right here, we are using our API key to connect to our hCaptCha account. And then we say solver.normal, and then we give the path to our captcha image, which we will download. And yeah, that's basically it. Now it will return us the result, and then we can give it to this input right here and click check, and it will tell us if it solved it or not. Of course, we will use Selenium during that, so our Selenium script will visit this page and it will download the image, and also it will input the text and click check. That's basically it. So let's see how we can do that in code. So first of all, let's create a new Python file called normal-captcha.py. Let's go back on our main.py file and let's copy the basics. So let's basically create a browser with Selenium and then visit a website. And here let's replace our URL with the hCaptcha demo normal URL. So let's do that. Now next, what we want to do is take a screenshot of this image right here. So let's see how we can do that. First of all, let's go on Elements tab. Actually, first of all, right click and then click Inspect. Go on Elements tab, click this button right here, and then hover over the image. There we go. Now, as you'll see, this image has a class. Now, if you are using that in any other website, just try to find which selector is unique for that image. And we can actually use the alt as well, but I don't think the class is different every time, is it? Let's refresh and check it. No, it's always the same. Okay, good. Now let's go back and let's say captcha underscore image equal to browser dot find element by, and then let's use the class name, and then let's use this class name right here. And then what we want to do is say captcha dot image dot screenshot, and then we will give it what path we want to use for that captcha. Now I'd like to create a separate folder and say captchas. There we go. And say, okay, go to that folder and then save that image. And that will basically take a screenshot of that captcha. So let's test it. So let's run our application and let's go here, and it didn't do that. Okay, so let's see why it didn't. Actually, let's not do that. Let's rerun it. And there we go. Okay, I think the only thing I had to do is remove this class. So just that. And there we go. It did take the screenshot. Now let's see how we can send that to hCaptcha API and then give us the result. So let's go back here and let's go to the example it gave us in Python. There we go. So let's copy this and paste it here. Now I'll remove this one right here because we don't really need it. And that's basically it. So let's import it up here. Let's import hCaptcha. And then we don't really need that. We will say print. And then here we will say print result. There we go. And let's import OS up here as well. Now here we will give it our API key. So if you haven't one already, sign up and then it will create your API key automatically. So let me show you how you can find that. So I have already signed up, but if you haven't already, click the link down in the description. Okay, so once you sign up, you can scroll down and right here you can see your API key. So just click copy and that's basically all you have to do. Of course, you have to add some fonts in order the normal captcha to work. But if you have, that's great. Let's continue. So let's go back and I'll paste my API key here. Before I do that, let's define our path for the captcha. And it's basically the same as I saved it right here. So captchas, captcha.png. There we go. Now let me paste it, my API key, and let's test it out. So let's run our application. So it actually took almost no time. It only took 1 to 2 seconds or less than that. Now what we can do is get that code. So let's say, okay, code equal to result, and then the code, and then let's input it. So let's say browser dot find element. So let's inspect element, and there we go. This is the input, and let's get the ID. So we will basically send the code to that element, to that input. That's what send keys does. It basically sends those keys to the element we found. Then once we do that, I want to click the button. So let's say that. Let's say dot click. So I don't have to do that. There we go. Now let's find the selector for the button. So let's do the same thing. Hover over the button and get the class name. It has multiple class names, I guess. Let's take the last one. That's probably the unique one. There we go. And once we do that, I don't want the browser to close immediately. So we will say time.sleep and let's sleep for 2 minutes. And let's import time right here. Now you don't have to do that, I just did that so I can show you that it worked. And yeah, let's test it. So let's run our Python script, and okay, it didn't really work. Okay, so that's probably because we did it too fast. So let's try to wait until the simple captcha field is visible. So actually, is that the issue? That's probably the issue, right? Yeah, so let's say WebDriver wait, and then wait for this one right here. There we go. I think that's probably enough. Now let's also print the code to make sure we actually get the code, and let's run it again. And we got an error. So it says element not interactable. So it couldn't find the button. So let's see why is that. So can we use something else? So let's say copy, and then we can use the XPath. So let's do that instead. Now we don't have to wait until the button is visible, because if the input is visible, basically the button is visible as well. So it's probably a selector issue. So now with XPath, there we go. It worked. So it input the text that we got from the API, and then you click the button, so now we get CAPTCHA is passed successfully. And yeah, that's basically it for this video. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it, subscribe so you don't miss the next episode I do so on how to bypass detection of Selenium. So many websites like Gmail as well can detect you are using Selenium, but there is some ways you can bypass that, and you can basically do whatever you want. So yeah, with that said, see you in the next video. Bye bye. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome to another episode of the Selenium tutorial series. In this episode, we will see how we can be undetectable, and basically we want to achieve websites to not detect that we are using Selenium. And I will use as an example to log in to a Gmail account using Selenium. Basically, if we use normally, Gmail will detect you, and when you try to log in, it will show you a message and it will basically block you. It will stop you from logging in. So first of all, I'll show you how we can log into Gmail. We will see the error, and then I'll show you ways to fix that. So yeah, if you are interested, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future episodes. And yeah, with that said, let's get it started. So first of all, let's create a new Python file and let's name it undetectable selenium.py, or actually let's just name it undetectable, and let's copy an example. So let's go on main.py and let's copy the imports and also the way we start the browser. There we go. Now I'll open Google and I'll copy paste this URL for logging in to Gmail, and let's paste it here. Let's basically replace the URL. So first of all, we want to enter the email, so let's find the selector for this email input, and if we go here, actually let's just inspect. There we go. So this is the input, and now what we can do is copy and then copy selector. Okay, so this is an example. Let's replace our ID with the ID, and actually let's do it one line. So we will try to find the element by the ID and then send keys. Now let's replace this method with the new method find underscore element, and we will pass here something called by, and we will find that element by the CSS selector, and then we give the CSS selector. So let's try it. Let's do test, not by CSS selector, by ID. Yeah, okay, let's replace that. So we will say browser.findElement by ID, we give the ID, and let's send some keys. So let's run it, and there we go. Now next we have to click the button which is called next. So let's right click, click inspect, and let's again copy the selector. There we go. So let's say browser.find element. Now we will use the CSS selector, and there we go. Again, let's test it. So we enter it. Okay, now it didn't find the Google account, and I'll enter one of my Google accounts. Okay, so for email, I created an email, and let's replace the email here with the actual email, or actually let's make it more dynamic. So let's create a value up here. Let's say email equals that, and password or password equals test123 $. There we go. And now let's use the email here. And now once we click next, the button next, let's do that. So we enter the email, we click next,
Now we need to wait before we actually input the password. So let's see how we can do that. First of all, let's find the selector for the password. So I'll right click, inspect, and then let's go and copy and then copy selector. And let's go down here and let's say actually password underscore selector, and that's the selector, and we can say that. So WebDriver wait, and then wait maximum 10 seconds until the element is located. So we are waiting for the password to be located, and then we can use the same thing here. So we will send keys. So this is like there we go. Okay, so we got an error because we said by ID. Now let's send that, let's say CSS selector, because it's actually the CSS selector, not the ID. So let's try that. We enter the email, the password, and we got an error, probably for the button, right? Okay, so let's see. Let's go here, click inspect, and let's get the updated selector, because it's probably different. So let's say copy selector, and let's replace it. There we go. Okay, it's actually different. So let's rerun it. There we go, and the password, and we actually got in. Okay, so I just found the issue happens only when your account requires two-factor authentication or something like that. So as you see right here, when I'm trying to log in with my main account, it says couldn't sign you in, the browser app may not be secure, because it basically detects you are using Selenium. So there is a package called undetected CHROMEDRIVER, and it basically applies some options to your Puppeteer and basically gives you a Puppeteer which is undetectable. Now, as it says, it's only for CHROMEDRIVER, it will not work for Firefox or something like that, but yeah, it's still very good. So let's use it. So first of all, you will have to run a pip install undetected CHROMEDRIVER if you haven't already, so make sure you do that, and then we will basically replace Selenium with this. So let's copy that, and we will only the WebDriver will replace that, and we will paste that there. And also the browser will be replaced with UC. There we go. Now, if I rerun it, and as you'll see, I'm using my main account. As we saw previously, using an account that doesn't have two-factor authentication, it will let you log in. But with two-factor authentication accounts, it doesn't let you log in. So let's do that. Actually, I'm not sure if it has to do with two-factor authentication or if with any settings on my account, probably because I make sure it is secured or something like that. But yeah, still. Okay, so the issue I just had was fixed by including that if statement right here. I'm not sure why that is, but I found the answer in Stack Overflow, and that's what they proposed. And I did that, and it actually works. So let me show you. So we are running the script, and as you'll see now, after I entered my email, as you saw, it didn't show me the error message. So yeah, it basically let me log in now, and it didn't detect my script as Selenium. So yeah, as you saw, we were able to make Selenium act like a human, so it wasn't detectable by Gmail. And if it's not detectable by Gmail, then mostly from any other websites, it will not be detectable as well. So yeah, I'll leave the link to the undetected CHROMEDRIVER down below so you can see the documentation yourself. Now, another way they can detect you isn't by detecting you are using Selenium, but by detecting you are doing multiple requests, thousands of requests in your IP address in the same location from your same computer. So a way to bypass that is using proxies. And if you don't know what proxies is, they are basically some IP address that you connect to from your Selenium script, and you are basically transferring the requests to that IP address. So it's like that IP address is your computer. So we can add an argument. So first of all, let's have some options. So we can say options equals to uc.options, and then we can add an argument. So we are basically adding some options, and then as an argument we can pass the IP address, the proxy server. So here you add the IP address and the port, and now we have to add those options here. So we can say
options equal to options. And that's how you can use the arguments, the options basically you have passed. Actually, UC don't have options, don't have the function options, so we are using the Chrome options from the WebDriver. So make sure you import it again because we had removed. And yeah, that's basically how you can use proxies. Now, another way is to make sure you don't use headless browser. The best way to be undetectable is to have a visible browser and not the headless browser. So make sure you are not using headless. And another great way is to save cookies and basically have a storage of your cookies and reuse them. And I'll show that in the next video, so have that in mind. And another option we can add is to use a user data directory. And that's basically your profile in Chrome. Let me show you an example. So we will say options.add argument, and we will say -- user data dir, which is a directory, equals to, and here you want to add the folder to your Chrome profile. And that's the best way to be undetectable. Basically, if you use your Chrome profile and you have an account logged into it, it's really hard by using both these undetected CHROMEDRIVER and the user data directory, because if you are using your profile, you are basically a normal user and it's really hard to be detected. Okay, so we have to go to Chrome and then version, and right here you can find your profile path. So I'll copy it and I'll paste it right here. Now what I suggest is you actually don't use profile and then the number of that profile, but you actually use the default one. So it will automatically pick your default profile, and your default profile usually is the last profile you used. And that's again even better to use the default one and not a specific one. So yeah, that's another great way to be undetectable. The code will be down the description, so if you want to check this code out, click the link down the description, my GitHub repository, and go to the undetectable.py file, and here you will have this code. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, let me know down in the comments what you would like to see next, and make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and you hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future videos on this series and any other kind of videos. So yeah, with that said, see you in the next video, where we are going to see how we can use cookies and basically reuse them, so we can save cookies and reuse them. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to another episode in the Selenium tutorial series. In this episode we will see how you can save cookies locally and then reuse them afterwards. So what we will be doing is we will log into Gmail, we will save the cookies after we log in, and then we will have another script where we will load the cookies, we will go to the Gmail, and we will be already logged in by using the cookies, because that's why we are using the cookies, so we don't have to log in again. Now that's useful, maybe you have an account where it requires phone authentication and you cannot really automate that, so what you can do is you can do it manually once, and then you can use the cookies, and the next time you will not have to authenticate yourself again. So yeah, with that said, let's go in the code. So first of all, we will create another file called save-cookies, and here we will log into Gmail and then afterwards save the cookies. So the login to Gmail part, we have already done it in the previous video. So if you haven't already watched that, you can go to the previous video and watch it, and then come back to this video. So we can just copy the code from the old code, and with this code we logged into Gmail. And then what we want to say, first of all, I want to import time, and then after we log in, what we can do is time.sleep5. And we do that because whenever you click the login button after you fill up all your details, the login doesn't happen immediately, it takes a second or two. So that's why we want to wait for 5 seconds to make sure we are logged in, and then we will save the cookie. So yeah, have that in mind. Now there are better ways of doing that, like using a wait for selector function, which will basically wait for a selector that is visible only when you are logged in. But for now, let's keep it simple and have a sleep function. And then what we can do is we can have a variable called cookies, and then cookies are equal with browser.getCookie, and then we can print cookies. So let's see what that gives us. Now I have to add an account here, so give me a second. Okay, so now that I use an account, what we can do is open terminal, new terminal, and then we can run Python save cookies. So it logs in, and then after 5 seconds, it shows us the cookies. So as you see, there are multiple cookies, and that's basically an array of objects, which each object represents a cookie. And each cookie has some information like the domain, the name, the value, and some other options. Now we don't really care what those are, so let's leave them as they are. So now our next step is to save those cookies locally. Now we can use a library called pickle, and we have to save cookies to the pickle format file. So to do that, we can say pickle.dump, and we will save the cookies to the cookies.pkl file. Now .pkl stands for the pickle, like .py stands for Python. That's the file extension. So yeah, that's what we have to do. So let's test it out again so we can save the cookies. So we log in, and then we will wait for 5 seconds, and it should save the cookie. There we go. So there is the cookies.pkl file. Now what we have to do next is create another script where we load those cookies. So we can say load cookies.py. Then we will copy paste those first few lines of code because they are basically the same. Now we will not use any options, so let me remove that. Neither we have to log in, so we don't need the email or password. And yeah, that's basically it. So what we say is create a new browser and then go to the login page. Now to load those cookies, after we go to that page, what we have to do is we can say cookies are equal, and then we can load the cookies using the pickle library, and we can have a for loop for each cookie in cookies, and we will add the cookie to the browser. But before we do that, we have to make a few adjustments to each cookie. So if we go to the cookies.pkl file, as you see, each domain is equal to .google.com except for some. So some domains are equal to mail.google.com, as you see right here, and we don't want that. We want all the domains to be equal to .google.com. Otherwise, what ends up happening is we get an error from Selenium that says domain mismatch, and that's because the domain we are right now, which is accounts.google.com, doesn't match the domain of that cookie we are trying to add. So what that basically means is each cookie we try to add has to be the same domain with the one we are currently visiting. We cannot add cookies to other pages that we aren't visiting right now. So to update the domain of each cookie, we can say cookie, get the domain, and then we can say that domain equals to .google.com. Now we could say accounts.google.com, but I don't like that because whenever we get to the Gmail part, we will not be able to see that. We will not be logged in. And I like to say .google.com and not accounts.google.com because just .google.com, that means it contains all the subdomains. And if we put a specific subdomain, we will not be able to log into Gmail or any other Google services. So yeah, after we do that, now we can have a try catch because this will not work with all cookies. And now some cookies give us an error, but we don't really care about those. So that's why we have the try catch. So that's it. Now we don't have to do anything else. So now after we add all the cookies, what we can do is visit the Gmail page and then sleep for 2 minutes so we can see it actually works. So yeah, let's test it out. Let's run the code. Now as you will see, it will visit the login page, add the cookies, and then go back to mail.google.com. Now as you will see right here, we got an error, and that's because of our try except right here. But don't worry about that. Now you can just do nothing here, like pass or something. I'll just leave it to print, just in case we get any other errors beside this unable to set cookie. So yeah, that's it for this video. The code will be down in the description, so make sure you check it out, download it and test it yourself. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos, and hit that bell notification so you make sure you get that notification. And also let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see next, and also if you need help with any issues you faced. So yeah, with that said, see you in the next video. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome to another episode in the Selenium tutorial series. In this episode, we will see how we can intercept requests in Selenium using the Selenium-var package, and we can do a lot of different stuff, like we can get the request details, the header, the body, and also we can block the requests and do a lot more. So if you click the link down in the description, you will be redirected to this documentation, and you can scroll down and see everything that you are able to do. If you don't know what requests are, if we go and right click and click inspect and go to the network tab, basically the request is everything that the website needs to function. So it will request for the HTML code, the JavaScript code, third-party images or JavaScript, or any assets that the website needs. So that's basically what the requests are. So you can find all the requests by going to the network tab. So yeah, with that said, let's get into the video. So first of all, let's scroll up, and what I would like to see is, let's work first of all with the example. So let's copy the example, go back to Visual Studio Code. You can clone my GitHub repository, but for this video, you don't really need to. But I will continue in my GitHub repository. So I'll create a new file. Let's call it sw.py. And let's copy our example. So what happens here is we visit the page, and then when the page is loaded, we get the requests from the driver. And then we print each request URL, the status code, and the header. So let's go ahead and see how that's like. So first of all, it opens the browser, and then when it closes it, or when it's finished with everything above this function right here, so when everything is finished above that, and above that we only have the page loading. So once it's loaded, then we get the request. So first of all, we saw how we can get the information for its request, some basic information. Now you can get a lot more. And as you see, we got the URL for request, the status code, and also the header. Now I would like to use a custom example. I searched for mountains and then got to images tab, and I'll use this URL to run some tests. So what we can do is right click and click inspect, then go to the network tab, and if we reload the page, as you see right here, if I click in a request that displays an image and go to the preview tab, we can see an image that is also displayed here. So I can try to find one. Now I'm not sure if I can. There we go. So this image right here is this image. So if we go on headers, as you'll see, there has been a request to that URL, and most images has this part the same. So as you'll see here, if I click this one, this one, this one, it's always the same. So what we can do is copy the start of that URL, which stays the same always. Go back on the code, and we can have an if statement, and we can say if request.url dot starts with and that URL, then we want to print the request.url, and that basically gives us all the images URLs. So what I want to do is import time, and then wait an extra 3 seconds after the page is visited, and then get the images. So let's do that, and there we go. So we got all the links. So if I click to one of the links, we can see the image. But how can we get the body of, let's say, some JSON file? So now this is a random JSON we can use, and if we go on headers, we can get the request URL and copy it. Now this is not really useful. This is just an example of how we can get the JSON from a response body. This is called the body right here. So let's go back, and we can say if request.url.starts with, and as I will show you, we will not use the entire URL. This part could not be the same sometimes, so I'll just leave it to this. And then if it does, then we want to say body equals to request.response.body, and then we will print the body. But as you'll see in a bit, we will have an issue. Actually, it's not an issue, it's just how it is. So it will not display some readable data, but instead it will display the body in bytes. Now, how we can make it to a readable context, like this one right here. Now, a way to fix that is we can use a utility from Selenium Wire, which is the Selenium Wire.utils, the decode function. And let's copy the example and paste it here. And we can say body equals to the response, which response should be equal to request.response. And we basically use that function and we give it the body, which is in bytes, and also the headers, as a specific part of the headers. And then we should print the body and we should get a readable JSON file. So let's test it out. And there we go. So it worked, but we get a B in the start and it is inside a string and we don't really need that. Now to remove the B from the start, what we can do is we can say decoded body underscore body equals to body.decode and then UTF-8. And that will basically make it a normal string without that B in the start. So let's print the decoded body and see if it worked. And there we go. So now we actually get the JSON. Now, if you want to use that JSON, you will have to do import JSON. So you'll have to use the JSON package that comes with Python. And you'll have to say JSON data equals to JSON.loads, and you want to load that decoded body. Now, if I print that, it will be basically the same. You will not understand the difference. But when you want to get a value from that JSON or you want to use it as a JSON, then you will have to do it as we did it right here. So that's how we can get some information from that response. Now let me show you how, instead of doing it after we finish everything above that, how we can do it while the browser is running. So we can do it more dynamic. So as the request happens, we can get that information. So we basically get them the information live. So a way to do that is we can make a function called def, and then we can say intercept, and that will give us a request. And for now, let's just print the request.url. And then the way to use that, we can say driver.request_interceptor to that interceptor. So let's comment that out and let's test it. And as you will see, we are getting the request live as they happen. As you saw, the browser didn't have to close to get the request. Now this is useful because basically you want to get the request as they happen, or that's useful if you want to block a request live. So what we can do is, let's say you want your script to be more efficient. So the browser basically slows by the images, and maybe you don't want the images to be shown, so you can make your script faster. So what you can do is, if you go to Selenium Wire and we go to block a request, you can see an example that it says block PNG, JPEG, and GIF images. So let's do that. So right here, we can say if the request.path or .url actually let's leave it to path, ends with PNG, JPEG, or GIF, then abort that request. But a better way to do that, because our images don't have an ending, so if I scroll up and I click an image, you will not see a .png at the end of the URL or something like that. So for our case, we will not use the ending, but instead we will use how the URL starts. So we will copy this and we can say if request.url.starts with, and if it starts with this URL, then abort the request. So if we run the code, we will see that that works. Now the reason those images are not disabled, but if I scroll down, every other image is disabled, is because Google pre-renders a part of a website, a part of the website. So when it pre-renders the website, it doesn't request that image from the URL we saw, but it actually saves it locally. So it uses the data image URL, and that's why those are not intercepted. They are, but we are not targeting those specific ones. We only targeted the ones with that URL. but you get the point. So you can actually disable those ones as well, but I'll leave that to you. We don't have to do that. Now we saw how we can stop a request, but what if we actually need to replace that request? So let me show you a fun thing we can do. So let's go back to the documentation, and if I scroll down, we will see example mock a response. And let me explain what we will be doing. So if we go back, what we can do is every request that meets our criteria, this criteria right here, the criteria can be whatever you want, but whatever request meets this criteria, what we can do is replace that with a specific image, for example, or a specific request response that you want. So for example, you can replace a JSON with something else, with your own JSON and stuff like that. In our case, we will replace the image. So let's see how we can do that. So as you see right here, we have an example for mocking a response, which is basically replacing the response. And to do that, we can copy this right here. And instead of aborting, let's comment that out. We can do that. So we can create our own response, and we can give it status code of 200, which means success, or you can give it whatever you want. If you want it to fail or show something else, you can do your own. And then for headers, that won't work. We have to do image dash JPEG if we want to show a JPEG image, for example. And then let's find a JPEG image. So let's go up here, and let's say we want to replace all images with this image right here. So let's copy the image address and give it as the body. And that's basically all we have to do, I think. So first of all, let's try it out and see if it will work. So now I have to scroll down and it didn't work. Okay, so why is that? Okay, so what I want to do is try to download an image and use that instead. Okay, can I JPEG? There we go. Or GBG, it's the same thing. Okay, so actually I found out how we can do that. So the body doesn't expect to get the actual URL of the image, but instead it expects to get the contents of that image. Like if we go on a JPEG file, it expects to get the actual file and not a URL. So the way I did it is I downloaded the file locally, and then in the body I opened that file and I read its context. So I read basically the code of that file. Okay, so first of all, I have to add a timer, and let's put time.sleep and let's put 2 minutes. So I did that because the browser closes after it loads and we don't want to do that. So that's why I did it. And now let's test it again. So if I scroll down, as you'll see, all the images are now displayed with the image we downloaded. So I use this one and I replace all the images with this one right here. Now there's a lot more than you could do with this Selenium-wire package, so check it out down in the description and check what else you can do. But yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see next for this series, or for any other type of video you'd like to see. Also hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future videos. So yeah, with that said, see you in the next video. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome to another episode in the Selenium tutorial series. In this episode we will see how we can solve hCAPTCHA using the hCAPTCHA API. So yeah, with that said, let's get into the video. So first of all, click the link down in the description and you will be redirected to this page right here. hCAPTCHA is a paid service, but the cost is quite low, so you pay $3 per 1000 reCAPTCHAs, solved reCAPTCHAs. So yeah, have that in mind. Now that's reCAPTCHAs, but I think the price for hCAPTCHAs are basically the same or quite similar. So to use this service, click the link down in the description, which is an affiliate link, and you can sign up through there, and then you will get an API key, which I'll show you how we can use it later. So now we have an hCAPTCHA demo that hCAPTCHA provide us, and here we can see how we can solve that. So first of all, what I want to do is go back on the code. Make sure you clone the code down the description, and I'll create a new file. So let's name it hCAPTCHA.py, and let's copy a demo here. So let's go on main.py and let's copy a demo. So we'll copy all of this and also copy the way that we create the browser. So this is a demo. So what we are doing is we are importing Selenium, and some other stuff that we will probably use. And then we create a Chrome browser and then we visit a page. In our case, we will visit this page, which also has the demo. So let's copy the URL and paste it here. And let's test it out. So if you are using Visual Studio Code, you can click right here to run this Python code. Otherwise, go on terminal on the same folder as your code and run Python and then hCAPTCHA.py. So that will open a window and there we go. So now let's go back on the documentation and let's see how this works. So first of all, step number 1, it says to open the developer's console in your browser and find the element with the data side. So it shows you it looks like this one right here. So as you will see right here, we're going to need the data side key, and we also have the Python example, so we will use that as well. So first of all, let's find the data side key. So let's go on our developer's console, and what we can do to find it really easily, we can grab this right here and then do a Control F. So go on the Elements tab, click somewhere right here, click Control F, and then this will open. So it says find by string, selector, or XPath. So I'll just copy this, and then as you see right here, it goes directly to the iframe of this hCAPTCHA. And as you see, we have the source here, and on that URL, so if we open it or just copy it, as you see, we have the side key right here. So let's open it in a new tab, and then let's try to locate that side key, and there it is. And if you can see, this match right, this one right here. So that's great. So that's how you can find it really easily. Now you can also search for the ID or the hCAPTCHA, but it doesn't, this div doesn't always exist. In my case, it didn't exist, but you might find it that way or the way that I showed you, basically the same way. So now that we located the side key, now I want to mention that always stays the same, so you don't have to make the script look for it. So we are okay on that side. Now let's go on the Python script and let's copy the example. Let's copy it, go back, and then create a new Python script and call it, actually we can do it on the same script. So yeah, let's do that. So let's do def and then solve hCAPTCHA and then copy that. Now there is some changes I want to do. So first of all, let's remove the comments. Then we have to install this package right here from Python, but let me clarify some things. So whenever you will try to download this, you will not do pip install and then to captcha. We have to use another name. So let me show you how we can do that. So the correct naming is pip install to captcha-python. So let's copy that. I'll have the link down in the description as well. And let's go back and let's run this command. Now it will start downloading the to-captcha Python package, and that was pretty quick. So let's go back. Now here you will add your API key, which I'll show you in a bit how you can get. And we don't need this, so let me remove that. Here what we will do basically is print E and then return false. So if there is an error, if it doesn't get the result, we will print the error and return false, so we can have an if statement, and here we will just return the result. There we go. So what I want to do now is here provide some elements. Actually, we don't have to do that. No, we don't. So here you will put the side key that we got. So make sure you change that with the new side key you get. And here for the URL, just get the URL of the page you are trying to solve the CAPTCHA for. And you can do it dynamically. So the way to do it dynamically is to pass the URL here and here in case the URL is dynamic. And then when you run solve CAPTCHA, basically you'll provide the URL like that. The URL and then browser.current URL. And browser.current URL will give you the current URL. So that's how you can do it dynamically. Now I'll not do that. So let me remove that as the URL is static. And yeah, let's leave it like that. Let me import at the start. There we go. So next thing now is to get our API key. So after you sign up using the link down in the description, now they are not sponsoring me, but if they are watching this video, I'll really appreciate a sponsorship. But I really recommend them as I have used them for a long time. So once you sign up, you can scroll down and right here you can see your API key. Now you need to deposit some balance in the account so the script actually works. Otherwise it will show you an error that your balance is like 0 or something like that. So yeah, copy the API key. So replace your API key with your actual API key. Now let's leave that, and actually let's do that on the top, and let's put that on the top of our script. So the next thing to do is to go back on the page, and if we reload the page, you'll see the hCaptcha doesn't load immediately. It takes a few milliseconds to a second, and we need our script to wait for the CAPTCHA to load and then start solving it. So the way to do that is we can get the selector of that CAPTCHA. So what you can do is right click, click inspect, click this button right here and hover over the hCaptcha. And here what we can do is wait for the iframe. So we can right click, click copy, and then copy the selector of the iframe. Then we can go back. Okay, so what we can do is wait for the iframe. So what we are doing is we say the browser to wait for X amount of seconds. So I put 10 until the element is located, and we are using by the CSS selector, and we can put the CSS selector we copied. So whenever the CSS selector is located, then everything after that will run. Now you can adjust the timeout depending on how fast the hCaptcha loads on your page, but if it doesn't load within those seconds, it will give you an error, so have that in mind. Now the next step is wait for the result, which may look like this. So let's go ahead and get the result. So to do that, all we have to do is run this and attach that to a value. So we can say result equals to this, and then we can print the result. So let's rerun our script, and it waits for the hCaptcha to be loaded. Now it is loaded, so now it will request from the hCaptcha API to get the result using their Python package. Now that takes a few seconds, so it doesn't happen immediately. So we will wait for that. And there we go. So we got a JSON which has the CAPTCHA ID and also the code. So let's get the code from that JSON, and how we can do that is let's say code equals to, and then result, and then we get the code from that result. And that's basically how you can do that. Now another thing we can do is we can say if result. So if we actually got a result and we didn't get false, so if we got a result, then get the code. Now the step number 3 is to go on the developer's console, find the text area with this name right here, and then put there the received code, and then click the checkbox. So let's see how we can find that text. So I'll copy this, and I can click right here and type Ctrl F, and then type that. And as you see, the text area is right outside the iframe, so that makes it easier to access it, so we don't have to access the iframe to access the text area, so that's good. So now let's find that text area using the name, and then let's update the value. So let's go back on the code, and I have done that already, so let me copy that and I'll explain what that does. So right here, what we are doing, we are executing a custom JavaScript script, because by default the website will not allow us to update the text area value, so we have to use a hacky way or something like that, and we are basically telling the browser to execute a JavaScript script, which what the script does is it says, okay, document.getElement by ID. Okay, so we can replace this method getElement with the query selector, which is the same thing. And then we can provide the selector we want. So the selector is the name. Go back, and here let's replace that with this one right here. Now I have to make some changes, and that's how you can basically query selector for the name. And then we get the inner HTML, and then we update the inner HTML with the code. And that's how it works. And then lastly, what we do is we say browser, okay, find the element, and I'm talking about this button right here, and click it. So if we right click and click inspect, as you'll see, actually it's not the same. So let's copy and then copy selector and then update it. There we go. And then we can say by and then CSS selector. And yeah, let's test it out. So let's see if it works, and we got an error. So let's see what it says. Okay, it says message JavaScript error missing this. Okay, so I managed to fix the error. So I had to update some syntax error right here. And I did something like this in order to accept single quotes around the name right here, the name selector. So yeah, it's kind of complicated, but that works. So again, let me test it out so you can see it. So if we run the script, again, now it will wait for the hCaptcha to load. it will send a request to the hCaptCha API using the hCaptCha package. Then we will get the code and we will update the text area with the code, and we should get success in a few seconds. And there we go. So it says CAPTCHA is passed successful. And it only took a few seconds for the script to do all of that. So have that in mind. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know down in the comments what would you like to see next. Also, you can download the code from the GitHub repository down in the description. Also, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future videos. Also, make sure you check the new Discord server in the description, and yeah, you can join the Discord server, ask your question, and help build a community so we can help each other with programming. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome to another episode in the Selenium tutorial series. In this episode, what we will do is we will see how we can scrape a website. So yeah, with that said, let's get into the video. So let me explain first of all what a website with infinite scrolling is. So we have a website with a demo that has infinite scrolling, and what happens is when I scroll down, and as you can see it has multiple items, so its infinite scrolling box is basically an item or an element. So whenever I scroll to the bottom of the page, it will load 10 more like those items. And there is multiple of websites that do the same thing, like Facebook Marketplace or Reddit or even TikTok does that. So whenever you scroll down, or YouTube recommendations, it keeps loading more and more products or more and more items. So what we would like to do is create a script which we can give it an item's total amount. So we can say we need, for example, to scrape 1000 items or 10,000 items or 100 items, and we can tell the script to keep scrolling down until it reaches that amount, and maybe for the end we can save the items locally. So let's go on code and see how we can do that. So first of all, let's create a new file and name it infinite_scrolling.py, and here let's copy paste a demo from main.py file, which you can find this code or the whole folder in my GitHub repository down in the description. So yeah, let's create a demo first of all, like this one right here. And first of all, we need to replace this URL with our infinite scrolling demo. There we go. So now the next thing we need to do is initialize some values that we will use. So the first value is the actual items or elements. I'll name it items. And basically that will be an empty array. Next, we need to store the last height of our page. Now I'll explain why we need to do that in a little bit. And that will be equal to our current page height. Now every time we scroll to the bottom of the page, we will update that with the latest height. And again, I'll explain a little bit how we will use it. Next, what we want to do is create another value which we can change. So we can say item and then target count. And like I said before, we will give our script a target count for our items. So for example, we can say the script to scrape 1000 items. And why we are not getting all of the items is most likely our website will never stop showing you more content. Now, if it does, that's why we'll use that, and I'll explain how we will use it in a little bit. But if it never stops showing you content like YouTube recommendations or TikTok, then the only way to somehow stop the script eventually is to set a target. Otherwise, what will end up happening is we will finish out of RAM memory and basically our browser will crash. So that's why we want to set a target amount. Now you can test that, so you can test the limits, but for our example, we will just set it to 100. Now the next thing we need to do is create a while loop, and here we will check when our item target count is actually hit. So what we can do is say item target count bigger than the length of our items. So what we are basically saying is while our target count is bigger than the items, keep scrolling down and get the new elements. Now the first thing we need to do is scroll down. So to do that, we can say browser
and then we will execute the script, and we will say window, so basically it's our window, our browser, and then we say scroll to, and then first of all we will define 0, and the next parameter is the height of our page. So what we are saying is scroll to the height of your page, basically to the bottom of the page. Scroll until you reach the bottom of the page. Now the next thing we have to do is set a timeout. So we will say time.sleep, and then we can say 1. And why we do that is because every time we scroll to the bottom of the page, we need to give our script some time to load the new elements. Actually, we need to give the website some time to load the new elements. So how we do that is by setting a timeout. Now, you have to adjust your timeout based on how fast you get new results on your website, but also there is a better way to do that. Maybe you can check the current item length, and then once the current item length is bigger than the previous item length, then you can continue. But that's too complicated, so I'll just leave it to that for now. Then the next thing we need to do is get the new height. So we can say, actually we just copy this, so our last height, and then we can update that with our new height. And what we would like to do is we can say if our new height is our last height, we can break the script. And why we do that is for those websites that when you keep scrolling down, eventually they will stop showing you more items. So for those kind of websites, you can utilize that. Now, if that doesn't happen with your website, you can just remove that, but it doesn't hurt having it. So yeah. Next, what we will do is update our last height. So if that's not true and we don't break the script, then we will just update our last height with our new height, so we can check it the next time as well. And then now what we will do is scrap the new elements. Basically, we don't scrap just the new elements, but we scrap all the elements that are visible, so have that in mind. So we can say elements equals to, and then browser.findElements, and we will use the CSS selector for each element. So let me show you how we can find that. So we can go on an element, right click, and then click inspect, and right here each element has its own box, as you see right here. So what we can do is right click and then click copy and then copy selector, and if we go back we can copy paste our selector and we can remove that. Now that only defines which element our element is, so this is the element 7. Now we don't need that. So what we are basically doing here is we are saying find all the elements that match our CSS selector, and yeah, that's basically it. Then for each element we want to grab the contents of our element. In our case we just want to get the text of our element, but in your case you can grab the title, for example, of an article in Reddit. You can grab the description and many other stuff, and I'll explain how to do that in a little bit. So in our example, as I said, we will run a for loop in our elements, and we also have to define another value, so you can say text and then elements and then leave it to that. Actually, yeah, we have to do that. And then we will say text elements.append, and then we will get the text of that element. Now, if you want to get multiple different stuff, then you can say, for example, title equals to, and then you can get the element, basically the whole box, and then run another query selector, or basically the find element, and you can get basically the title like that. Now that's not exactly how you get it, that's just an example. And then instead of doing that, you can basically append an object. So you can just define the object and then define the title, something like that. Now in our case we will not do that, but that's how you will do it when you need multiple information per element. So let's remove that. And then after we get the text for each element, then we want to update our items with our updated items. So we'll say items equals to, and then our text elements. And basically that's all we have to do. So let's test it out. So after our while true is finished, at the end we can say print, and then we can print the items, and we can also print the length of the items, so we make sure we actually got our target amount. So let's run our script. Now you can either click this button right here if you have Visual Studio Code, or you can run Python infinite_scrolling.py in your command line. And yeah, let's run it. And as you will see, we will first visit the website, and then the script will keep scrolling down and get the new items until it reaches 100 items. Then it will stop scrolling down, and then it will display the items right here. So as you see, we got all the items, so infinite scroll box 1 until 100. And we also got the length of our items, our array, which is 100, so that's great. Now finally, what I would like to do as a finished touch, we can save those elements or those items in our JSON file. So let's see how we can do that. That's really easy. So what we can do is we can say JSON.dump, and then we pass as our first parameter our items, and then as our second parameter we will open our items.json file, and if we don't have one, it will create it automatically, and then it will dump the contents of our items, so basically the array, into this file right here. So let's test it out by running the script again. And as you see, once the script finishes, if we go back on our items.json file, which is created, if we format the file, as you can see, we have all our power items saved on our items.json file. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see next. Also hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future videos. Also make sure to join our new Discord server down in the description, where I'm trying to build a community so we can help each other. So yeah, with that said, see you in the next video.
Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to another episode in the Selenium tutorial series. In this episode we will see how we can deploy our Selenium script in Heroku, but this time I will not say for free, like I have said in all of my other episodes, because as you see right here, Heroku announced that from 28th of November, free Heroku dynos will no longer be available. Either way, if you still want to use Heroku, let me show you how to do it. So first of all, let's go ahead and create a new folder. Now let's open our folder in Visual Studio Code. Now, if you saw right here, I run a command in terminal called dot, but either way, you can just open Visual Studio Code and then open the folder from there. Okay, so let's create a main.py. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and first of all copy an example. So let's go ahead and get this one right here. Okay, so as you see, we're using Selenium, but also I'm using CHROMEDRIVER auto installer, this package right here. And this allows us to auto install basically CHROMEDRIVER, the correct version. Now, one thing I want to mention is that Heroku doesn't really know which packages we are using. So what we have to do is create another file called requirements. There we go. And here you have to specify your requirements. So Selenium and also CHROMEDRIVER auto installer. Now, if you want to specify which version, you can do equal and then the version number, so 1.9 for example, or something like that. In my case, if we don't specify anything, it will install the latest version, which is fine with me, so let's go ahead and do that. And now next, what I would like to do is print, and then print the driver.title. And that's all we have to do. I don't really have to do anything else. By the way, in this video, I'll also show you how you can do it with GitHub and Heroku CLI. So what you can do is go on the timestamps and you can skip to either methods, but make sure you don't skip this part right here of the setup, because you might miss some of the settings. Okay, so next what we have to do is create the proc file. There we go. So we will say web equals to, or you can name it whatever you want, but
Also, you later on as well, you have to go ahead and enable it if it's not named web. But web by default is defined. Now, before I go any further, I want to mention what is procfile. Well, basically here on the procfile, we specify what Heroku should run, which command, in order for our script to run. So here we give it the name of the command and we say python main.py. So basically we are saying Heroku run python main.py. Now if you give it another name, again also you know a little bit how you can enable it yourself, but I'll leave it to web so it's auto-enabled. Now there's a few changes we have to do in order for this to work. So if you already have a script, I will just copy paste the changes right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what this is. First of all, I have to remove this. There we go. Okay, so first of all, we are creating the Chrome options. Then we are defining the Google Chrome bin, basically the binary location. Then we are specifying some settings like headless. We also disable dev usage. And then we are also saying it's no sandbox. Basically, this is the settings that you put on your script whenever you want to go in production. We also specify here the executable path of our CHROMEDRIVER. And actually, we don't need that because, yeah, let me delete it. Because we will install the CHROMEDRIVER by using a Heroku build pack. So let's go ahead and go in Heroku. Let's create a new app. Let's give it the name of Python and then a random number and create an app. Then let's go straight into settings before we deploy anything and let's create our build packs. Okay, so let's go ahead and annul build pack. Let's specify Python here and save changes. So Heroku Google Chrome master, or actually Google Chrome by itself. There we go, save changes. There we go, perfect. And then next, Heroku CHROMEDRIVER. There we go. Okay, so basically we installed Google Chrome and then the CHROMEDRIVER and also Python. This is the build packs you want for your app. Next, let's go and deploy. And for this time, we will go with Heroku Git. So let's go ahead and download and install Heroku CLI. So by clicking this link, you will get redirected to this page. And if we scroll down, you can see right here we have a macOS option, a Windows option, and then you also have Linux and some other stuff. But usually you are either macOS or Windows. So if you are Windows, you can click this link, then open the installation, and then follow the steps and install Heroku CLI. Now, if you are with Mac, then just copy this command, run it, and that's all you have to do. Now I have already installed it, so I don't have to do anything. Make sure to see this warning about Windows. So if you're installing it with Windows, you will get a warning, so make sure you click more info, verify the publisher as salesforce.com, and then click the run anyway button. Okay, so let's go back. And then as you see, we will just follow these steps. Okay, so what you can do is go on your folder, right click, and then new terminal folder. And this will open on terminal in your folder. And let's go back. There we go. Okay, so first of all, let's run Heroku login so we can log in through our terminal to Heroku. Okay, so just click login, and that's basically it. So let's go back. Now the next step is to go in your folder, which we already have done. But if you haven't done that, then you can do cd by opening a terminal first, and then your path location for your folder. Okay, next we have to copy this command right here. Actually, no, first we have to do git init to initialize a git folder. Then we have to connect our local Git folder with Heroku's Git folder. Perfect. And then we have to deploy your application. Now, whenever you want to update your application while in production, what you can do is run those 3 commands again. So every time you make a change on your application, you'll basically rerun these commands. So let's go ahead and do that. Git add dot, git commit -am, and then our message here, we can say initial deployment or specify any changes you have done. There we go. And then basically git push. Actually, not git push, Heroku master. And there we go. So the app is deployed. So what we'll go ahead and do now is go on resources. And why is there no resource? Okay, there we go. So we had to refresh, and as you see, we have our proc file resource here. So what we had specified on our proc file. Now again, like I said before, if your naming was not web, what we'll go ahead and do is go on your proc file or basically your resource, edit it, make sure you enable here, and then click confirm. And that's basically it. Okay, so next what we will do is go on our terminal and then run Heroku logs.stale. And here we'll make sure the script runs successfully, and probably not. Okay, so it crashed. Okay, so this is depressed, the executable path. So we probably have to do that. Okay, let's try that. And yeah. So like I said before, what we will do is git add, git commit. Now I say here fixed path issue, and then git push Heroku master. And there we go, our changes were successfully deployed. So let's go ahead and run Heroku logs tail again. And basically this command, if I did not specify it before, what it does is it displays logs. So that's it. Okay, so why do we get the same error? Oh, okay, so this is why this is happening. Okay, so first of all, I have to go back, go to environment variables, if I can, there we go. And here specify the CHROMEDRIVER path. And basically the CHROMEDRIVER path is always the same, and it's that. By the way, I'll leave this in the description, and also the Buildpacks, so you can find them there. And basically that's it. Now what we have to do again, we have to push again in order for our changes to take effect. Or to git push Heroku master, but also run the git add and git commit. And there we go. So let's run Heroku logs.stale again. And if we, there we go. So you see it successfully worked. So it says welcome to python.org, which is basically the title of the website. So yeah, this is it for Heroku CLI. Now let's go back and let's see now how we can do it for GitHub. So again, let's do new, create new app. Let's do Python, GitHub, and then a random number, and create an app. Now basically what we have to do is, first of all, let's go on Finder, and let's do shift command dot, and then on .git, let's delete the file from Heroku CLI, as we will need to create a new .git file, which will represent the Git for our GitHub and not for Heroku CLI. Okay, so first of all, let's go on GitHub. And here you will have to specify your repo, but not yet. First, let's do git init. And actually, let's go on our GitHub. Let's create a new. Then let's set for the name Selenium Heroku. Let's make it public. By the way, I'll have the link down in the description, and then let's create a repository. Perfect. So let's do git apt dot git commit, and then let's do first commit, and then we have to remotely add it to our git. There we go. And then push to master, but you can use a branch if you want. And there we go. So now let's refresh, and that's all we have to do. By the way, something I did, and I did during the Heroku CLI method, is I deleted here the executable underscore path equals to, as that method is depressed. Now we immediately set the CHROMEDRIVER path as so. So make sure you do that change if you haven't already. And let's continue. So first of all, let's go on settings, and we need to install some build packs. So first build pack will be Python. Next build pack will be Heroku-Google Chrome. Lastly, we have to install a build pack called CHROMEDRIVER. And there we go, that's it. Now also we have to go on config vars. And then specify the CHROMEDRIVER path. There we go. And that is this one right here. Perfect. And then let's go and deploy GitHub. Make sure to connect your GitHub first. And then by saying Selenium -h, you don't have to say the whole name. You don't have to type the whole name. Click enter and then connect. Now you have a few options here, so you can enable automatic deploys. So every time you deploy something in your GitHub, then you'll automatically deploy the changes in Heroku as well. And here you can select the branch if you want a different branch. So I'll go ahead and do that. But for the first time, you have to select the branch and then deploy manually. Or you can just push some changes, but this is easier. So let's do that. Now, in order to see what is going on, we will have to go ahead and use the logs that Heroku provides us. So I'll show you in a bit how we can do that. And there we go. So let's go back on our terminal, and then let's run Heroku logs stale, and it will probably give me an error. There we go. And let's set it right here. Okay. And then I also have to do this up and specify our application name so we can get the log. So this is our application name. So let's copy paste. And as you see, it successfully worked. And as you see right here, it says welcome to python.org. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know down in the comments if you need any help. You can also join our Discord server. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and also hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future videos, which I'll also do how to deploy in Vercel as well for free, both Selenium and Puppeteer, and I will also show how you can do that with Amazon Lambda. So yeah, see you in the next video. Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome to another episode in the Selenium tutorial series. In this episode, we will see how we can create a Selenium script specifically to deploy to AWS Lambda. So yeah, with that said, let's get into the video. So first of all, let me give you a brief of what we will be doing and why we will be doing that. So first of all, we will create a basic script, as you see right here. This is the script. And actually, let me make a change here. So what I like to do is do that. Basically get the title of the URL we visit and send that. Okay, perfect. So let's see what's happening here. So we use Selenium, and then we are defining a function which we will run from AWS Lambda. And then we create some options. So first of all, we are passing the headless Chromium, which I'll show you in a bit how we download and how we deploy that to AWS Lambda. And then we pass some arguments. So headless, first of all, and then some arguments specifically to be able to deploy it in production. Finally, we are creating our WebDriver with Chrome, and we use the CHROMEDRIVER here. Again, I'll show you how we can download that and deploy it in AWS Lambda. And finally, we are visiting Google. We are getting the title of that web page. We close the browser and then we send that response. And yeah, that's basically it. Then when we are deploying our script, before we do that, we will create two layers. The first layer is Selenium. And basically in this layer, if we search it, so AWS Lambda layers, as you see right here, Lambda layers provide a convenient way to package libraries and other dependencies that you can use with your Lambda functions. So any dependencies we have or packages, we want to deploy them separately from our function, so basically separately from our code, and also the CHROMEDRIVER, and then connect them together. So this is what we are doing here. So if you are using other packages separate from Selenium, you will see the process of how we do it for Selenium, and you will basically do the same thing for the other packages as well. And you don't have to deploy each package separately. You can do them all together, and I'll show you how you can do that as well. Also, something I want to mention is that we are using specifically Python 3.7, and for Selenium we are using version 3.8. We specifically do these versions because that's what is working with AWS Lambda at this moment. But either way, with those versions, you are pretty much covered, but because you can do pretty much everything. And yeah, let's continue. So once we deploy those layers, then we create a function, and then we deploy our code, this one right here, in our function. Okay, so let's see how we'll do that. So first of all, let's create a folder. So a new folder, let's name it Selenium Lambda. Actually, Lambda Selenium. There we go. And let's open this folder in our terminal. Okay, so the first thing we will do is actually let's open it on our Visual Studio Code. By the way, I'll have the code and the packages pre-installed in my GitHub URL, so if you don't want to follow the steps here, you can download that code. But if you have a pre-existing code, it's better you understand what I'm doing. Either way, actually, it's better if you watch the video, but to save you the time, you can download the code from GitHub. Okay, so let's open terminal, and what we will be doing is we will use pip 3.7, so make sure you download Python 3.7.0, and then we will do pip 3.7 install. Then we want to install Selenium equals to, and then 3.8.0, and we want to install Selenium specifically to a folder called Python lib Python 3.7 side packages, and that's it. Now we do that because we are trying to simulate the architecture, or basically the file structure of the original Python. So basically, when Python wants to use Selenium, locally it will visit this path, and then it will visit Selenium. So that's what we are trying to do, simulate basically that path. Now, if you have any other packages you want to install, just add them here. So for example, if you want to use NumPy, just add it here, add your version or leave it as it is, and install them as well. But for this example, we will only use Selenium, so there we go. By the way, the commands will be down in the description. Yes, I meant to do double. There we go. So yeah, the commands will be down in the description, so make sure you check them out. So as you see, there it is, and it also installed some other things we need. So what we will do now is, let's go in our folder, and we will zip this folder. So we will compress it, and as you see, we get a zip. So let's go back in our Lambda. Let's go on layers, and to go there, you can search right here, Lambda. Visit Lambda, and then go to the layers. So let's create a new layer. Now, as you saw, I have already a layer named Selenium, so I'll do Selenium. Let's do YouTube. And then here I'll upload my zip folder. By the way, if you have too many packages and your files are larger than 10 megabytes, you might as well use Amazon S3. But either way, I think it will work. It will just be slower. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, so we will select python.zip and open it. Then for the architectures, we will use x86 and then runtimes Python 3.7. And then we will create the first layer. Now, while this is being created, let's go back. And the next thing we need to do is, first of all, download CHROMEDRIVER. Again, this command will be down in the description, so make sure you check it out. And the next thing is to download headless Chromium. So let's copy this command as well. Now, while this is being downloaded, let's go on my previous example. And let's copy the code. There we go, and let's create that file. So main.py, and there it is. Now, if you have multiple files, and just make sure all your files end up in this main file. And then the function that you want to run, I'll show you in a bit how we can define that. So we have to specifically define on our function to run main, so the file main, then run main the function. And yeah, we don't have to do anything here. I already explained what everything does. Okay, so again, let's go on our Finder, on our folder, and let's unzip CHROMEDRIVER and headless, because what we have to do now is to zip those two together. So let's remove those, and let's zip them together. Perfect. So let's rename it to CHROMEDRIVER. This is not necessary, just to make it easier to understand. And then let's go back on Amazon and let's create a new layer. Let's name it CHROMEDRIVER-YouTube, and let's upload the CHROMEDRIVER here. And again, the same for this one as well. We will select for the architectures x86 and for runtimes Python 3.7. And we will click create. Now this takes several minutes, so don't worry if it takes too much, just leave it running and it will let you know when it's created. While this is happening, what we can do is go back on Lambda. Let's go on our functions and let's create a new function. So let's name it Selenium tutorial. For runtime, we will use Python 3.7, and for architectures, again, x86. And let's create the function. Of course, make sure you use Scratch, so author from Scratch. Okay, so now that we created our function, first things we need to do is go on configuration. Then we need to go on general configuration, click edit, and then we need to increase our memory. Now try to at least go for 520 megabytes, but for this tutorial I'll go with 1000 just to make sure everything runs correctly. And I'll also increase my timeout to 1 minute. So when you run your application, if you run into any issues, just try to increase the memory first and timeout and see if that fixes the issue. Otherwise, let me know down in the comments or join our Discord server, which I'll have in the description, and we can help you out with your issues. So yeah, let's click save. Now next we need to go back on code, scroll down and click edit on runtime settings. And on handler, we have to specify our file name, which is main, and then the function we need to run, which is also main. So main.main. So if you have different functions or different file names, this is how you do it. So file name dot function, and then click save. So now the next thing we need to do is add those layers. So let's click add a layer, custom layers, and then we will choose Selenium YouTube and the latest version. Click add. And then finally we will add another layer which will be the CHROMEDRIVER. And again we click the latest version and click add. By the way, sorry if my voice sounds kind of muffled. And yeah, let's continue. So now I think this is all we have to do. So let's click test. And let's test our application. And we do get an error. So it says unable to import. Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, so we forgot the most basic thing, and which is to upload our file. So let's click upload from and then the .zip file. Now, if for some reason your file is too big, maybe above 50 megabytes, use Amazon S3. But yeah, let's go with that for now. So actually, first of all, let's go back. Let's zip our file, and now if you have multiple files, just select them all and then zip them together. But since we only have main.py, we will zip that. So let's click compress main.py. And then let's go back and click upload. And then save. And there we go, it's uploaded very quickly because it's a small app. Okay, so let's go back on test and then let's click test again. And within a few seconds, as you see right here, we got execution result succeeded, and on our body we got Google, which is correct. So yeah, this is how you can deploy Selenium in AWS Lambda. Again, the code will be down in the description, so make sure you check it out. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, as it will really help the YouTube algorithm a lot to promote this video to other developers that are struggling to deploy Selenium in AWS Lambda. And also subscribe because I do many videos around Selenium, web scraping in general, and then web development. So you most likely want to see them as well. And finally, hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future videos. Yeah, with that said, see you next video. Hello everyone, so in today's video I wanted to share some tips and tricks with you which you can apply today, and it will help you improve a lot your web scraping skills. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into the video.
Okay, so tip number 1. So let's say you are trying to visit what to watch page in IMDb and you want to scrub those movies, and for each movie get the movie details. Now what you will normally do is, let's say you are using Puppeteer or Selenium, you will visit this page, you will fetch the element that has all the movies, and then you would map the children of that element, and for each children you will get the movie details by HTML. But what if I told you there is a better way? Now this does not apply in every case, but I'll make sure I check those methods out first and then try the normal method, let's say. Okay, so what you should do is go to the network tab. Okay, so normally what websites do is fetch those movies from an endpoint and not display them immediately here. So what we will do now is open inspect element, go to the network tab, and what we will try to find is an endpoint that fetches those movies. Again, not every website does like this. Some websites are using server-side rendering, so there will be no endpoint visible here. So to find the endpoint, what I'll usually do is get one of those movies, maybe get the title of that movie, and put it here. And then I'll search. Actually, if you are visiting network tab for the first time, you have to refresh so you get the new requests. There we go. And then let's search for a movie. And as you see, in our example, we have an available endpoint. So what I'll do is I'll see what the endpoint looks like. And if we go on the edges, edges represent the movies. If you go on each children element of those edges, as you see, I can get the title. I can also get the rating right here. And you can find all those elements, like the primary image, for example. And this is a better way of fetching them. So you'll go on headers, copy the endpoint, and then instead of using Selenium or Puppeteer, you could use Axios or request. And this is a faster method of doing that. And also, yeah, actually it's just faster and easier to do. For tip number 2, sometimes those endpoints are not available for the public. So even if I try to use Axios, it will block access. Why? Because it uses CORS and it does not allow any other domain but itself, so imdb.com, to access the endpoint. What you could do is that you could try to listen to those requests by using Puppeteer or Selenium, and you could fetch that JSON response. So basically you listen to that endpoint. I have made a video on that. You can click up here and I'll display in order Puppeteer and Selenium videos. Now tip number 2 is to know how to bypass security. Now some sites will detect that you're a bot. So when you're trying to sign in by using Selenium or Axios or anything like that, it will block you from accessing that website because it knows you are a bot. So again, I'll redirect you to my videos, which I'll link here. And I have made videos on both Puppeteer and Selenium on how to bypass that security. Now it doesn't work every time, but it works most of the times, the tips I show you there. So tip number 3 is to how to easily locate a selector of any element on a website that you want to scrub. So how to easily locate an element, and either with Google Chrome and other browsers like Firefox or Edge use that as well. You can click on the top left button right here, hover over the element that you want to scrub. Let's say we want to scrub this title, and there it is. You can easily find that element within the HTML of the page. Now, how do we easily get the selector? Well, we can right click, copy, and then copy the selector. Or you could also copy the XPath, full XPath, and any other selector that you find useful. XPath is sometimes useful when you have the same selector for multiple elements of the website. Now, similar to tip number 1 is that sometimes websites are having the JSON data that you might want to scrap in those script tags right here. So what you could do is use an HTML parser, get the script tag, remove those script tags, and get the content inside that script tag, and basically parse that JSON. Again, that's a useful way of saving time, so there's no need of using Selenium or Puppeteer, which is sometimes less efficient. Okay, so the next tip is you plan before you scrap. So like any project, we want to have a plan of what we will be doing. And like I suggested in my previous tips, there is a lot of ways you can make your script more efficient. So make sure you plan, and your plan could look like this. So first of all, what website do I want to scrap? So for example, Amazon.com. Next, what do I want to scrap? So I would like to scrap the electronic products. The next thing I'll think of is which page can I access those products, and then how can I access them? And I'll try to look of the most efficient way of accessing those products. And again, there's a lot of planning you could put on this. And yeah, like you don't have to make a huge plan or anything. It can take you 1 to 2 minutes to think of things like that, and maybe a few minutes to research those things. But yeah, like don't go ahead and just start scrapping and making code before you just have a small plan in your mind. Now learn page structures. So when you want to maybe scrap those products right here, use the inspect element and see how those are structured. So what I'll go ahead and do is again use this tool right here. So the structure of this website, for example, is we have this element right here. So I'll tell my scrubber to get this element. Then as you see, the structure is within this element, we have each product. So I'll make my scrapper go through each product. And again, this is part of planning. So I guess this is part 2 of planning. Now, for example, this structure has many elements which you have to get through to get the title or the image. As you see right here, and there is the image, for example. There we go. And yeah, again, try to learn the page structure first before you go ahead and scrap it. Now, the most important tip is that make sure you read the terms of service, or I think even if you go on the robots.txt of the website, you could see if they allow you to scrap their pages, who they allow access to, and which pages they allow access to scrap and which not. And as you see, for example, this page is not allowed to be scraped, but for example, the wish list of the iPad is allowed to be scraped. Now I think robots.txt is mostly referred to search engine crawlers, but I guess make sure you check those, check the terms of service of the website, and they might mention somewhere that they are not allowing you to scrap their websites. And yeah, I think that's it for today's tips and tricks. Hope you learned something new and it helps you improve your skills. If you do so, hit the like button, I'll appreciate it a lot, and helps your YouTube algorithm to promote these videos to other developers so they can also learn these tips and tricks. And yeah, make sure you subscribe because I'll do many such videos in the future as well. And hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of them. So yeah, with that said, see you in the next video.